today being the Diwali, we say the celebration of light and festival of lights rather. So we call this, and this reminds me today morning that a story about Buddha. So I'm not sure how many of you heard of this, but I just thought of sharing it. So when Buddha was about to leave the body in this earth, and all his disciples were so concerned, they went to Buddha and then asked him, Buddha, so they were all disciples of Buddha. So they went to him and then said, so now that you're not well, you may leave us. Who will be our teacher? And how we will get enlightened without you? And who will guide us? For that, the last words of Buddha was, be your own light. Be your own light. So that is so profound in a way when we are thinking about all the external ways that we look forward, we seek that we need someone to help us to get our enlightened or have the self-realization. But then all it requires is a deeper seeing of inner self. When we look at our own inner self in a deeply, very focused way of be it be our thoughts, be it be our identities, and be it be our attachment to things, as well as some part of an ego, that automatically brings us our own light within us, which can guide us to become a better self-realized being. So that is the thing that want to start out with. So I wish you all to be your own light. So that is my wish to you, right? There is no limitation to it. Be there, be your own light, and find your self-realized person who you are. So with that being said, so the first thing I wanted to say is yesterday I just mentioned briefly what we are going to discuss about. It all starts with identities. So I'll quickly run through how our stillness get affected by these three things or the four things. One is identity, then comes some part of an as attachment to the identity. The third is ego. The fourth is thoughts. And finally, the stillness, it is get disturbed by these four things. So the identity, so for an example, what takes us away from the stillness is it's primarily our thoughts. Either it is thought about the past or thoughts from the future, what we want to achieve, what we want to do. It is that's the constant place we are in, either in the past or in the future. And even in the thoughts, if you look at it, the restlessness comes when we have a little bit of a attachment and ego towards it. When we say that this should be like this, if not, then I will feel disappointed. So that is kind of an ego that we carry, so that is makes us disturbed with whatever the present thought is, or else the thought itself doesn't have any power. That comes, it goes, it comes and goes. But what makes it so sticky and what bothers us is what is the power that we give to the thought, and what power we give is mostly some form of an ego that is attached to that thought, or some form of an attachment on something we heavily like or dislike. And where does that attachment comes from? If we clearly look at it, it comes from our identities. So when I say identity, this is what the Ramana Maharishi, if you heard of. So he's very popular. The saying is self-realization through self-enquiry, right? Self-enquiry is primarily you're asking, who am I? The question is, who am I? So what we identify ourselves as, I am, who is that I am? And as see, some for a long duration, I used to attach myself as entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, consultant, and a lot of tags like this, a lot of other tags. But that was just a glimpse or a tip of an iceberg. But when I start looking deeper and deeper and deeper, the identity starts arriving or start created from the time that we born into this world. Some of them are very unconscious, some of them are consciously created. When I say some unconscious, starting with the family we born in, the family themselves, they have some form of identity to themselves, right? They have their own belief system and they have their own religion. So that is comes to us by default, and the culture. And social status, social environment, and all these things becomes a part of our own identities that we relate, right? The place of birth can be one of the identity. And later on in our life, whatever the education, the books that we read, and consciously the people we hang out with, or the some people who we follow, and etc., that we start consciously building up that identities as well. So what happens is, the more identities that we create for our own self, the more belief and ideas and thoughts is what we get accumulated with. With more ideas and thoughts, the more attachments and ego. And more attachments and ego, more thoughts, either to support it or against it. The mind is constantly going from one to the other, either to support or deny. And finally, this takes us away from stillness. Does it make sense to you? So I just quickly, now this is what I wanted to share, and I
Yeah,
wanted to know from you what you think.
true.
True.
Yes, it is definitely true.
Yes.
Our identity, attachment to the identity, our thoughts definitely affect the stillness. It is true.
Yes. So we can go on in this, like, so this is a very deeper exercise itself. Like, the actually that I what I planned is, probably we can do an exercise to go with each stages of, like, how we identify, because it is important that for self-realizing, for self-realization, we need to identify what are our attachments and identities that we created, or what is given to us. So to understand that, I thought of running us through exercise. That in that exercise, probably we will, like, a kind of mental walkthrough of our life until this moment. And just imagine, like, what is the flashes that we get when we look back from the time, like, the earliest memory from the time that we were born until, like, the family. For an example, like a Diwali as a festival, there are a lot of memories filled with Diwali as a festival also, right? It is good to be
Mm-hmm.
happy and joyous, but some of those identities we want to hold on to, right? We just want to cling on to and say that Diwali means this, and this has to be like this only,
Mm-hmm.
right? Huh? So
Yep.
there is no the problem of, like, enjoying today, having, like, good time with family and friends and everyone. But then defining a meaning and attaching to it, it becomes a cage which presents us, and inside that, and anyone who comes from the outside and say, if say they say uh, anything against it, we feel uncomfortable,
Mm.
right? So that is what I'm just trying to point out. So that is an exercise that I planned for today, is, like, we can walk through our own the memory lane from the time of our birth, or the time that we the earliest memory until this moment, to find out what are our identities are, to just to briefly look into it and take away with self inquiry. That's all I planned for today. So before we get into it, if you have any questions, please go. I mean, no more than a question, share your thoughts. How do you see it? And we can discuss on that.
So I have a question, Karthike.
Sure.
There are people, I mean, when you know the people around you, so you're
Mhm.
generally able to predict their behavior. Like when you say that if so and so was in this situation, this is the way he would have reacted, or this is the way she would have reacted.
Yes.
And then there are some people that you're not very sure of, in the sense, let me just talk about myself. I am very acutely aware that given a circumstance, I may act uh, during that time in a particular manner,
Hmm.
but my reaction may not always be the same.
Hmm.
I'm not very sure. Like, I can't say, oh, if this would have happened, I would have told the person off.
True.
So there might be days when I would have
Shivani, we lost you.
Yeah, I think I lost the connection. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, it's pretty much. I don't know, like, yeah,
Yeah, it just went off like for a second. Okay.
it's fine. Yeah.
So, coming back to what I was saying, so Like I said, so there might be days where I would just tell the person off, and then maybe after a couple of months of um, undergoing a change, I would adapt a more, I would adopt a more peaceful method of approaching the situation, which can be tagged as being unpredictable. So how progressive is this, or am I getting two different concepts mixed up, or this is what not clinging to a particular identity all about? It's like kind of a gray area for me because I know this about myself. I wouldn't react in this manner each time blame someone else.
All right. See, our days are
I
not
used
like,
to bother me,
sorry, you can complete that,
and
Shivani.
it used to bother me till quite some time back.
Mhm.
Yeah, but then I just made peace, but now I need to make sense out of it.
All right. So if I understand your question, some days, some situation, you like, react differently to the same situation, which you generally,
Yes,
if you think through,
yes,
you don't. Correct?
yeah, yeah,
So to
that's
give
right.
you that perspective, like I can take my own, so whatever we are talking right now. So
Mm,
for an example, sometimes like my son comes and he really gets angry, and then the way that he wanted to show his anger is come and slaps the door so strong, that whole building or the whole house, vibrates. Okay.
right. Mm,
So whatever the stillness we are talking about, whatever the other things we talk about, at that
mm,
moment, so
mm,
probably I will be reading or I will be doing something. I will be doing some focused work.
mm,
At that moment, the inner stillness is, or any place wherever I am, it is shown
right.
it is completely that it is disturbed,
Okay.
right? So at that very moment, I may
Mm,
react in a different way. Very
mm,
moment, so I will uh, I will just probably I'll just say, I mean, my son's name is Adit, so I'll just tell him, Adit, what are you doing, or something I just raise my
mm,
voice, and then the
mm,
moment I do it, like I can see that I can literally sense what emotion that he feels,
mm,
right?
mm.
And that somehow that brings me back into the other sense, and then I just ask him gently, I'm sorry for reacting that way, but
Ah,
I
right.
want, I mean, I'm talking about the response time is what I consider us. It is not
True,
days or hours or anything. For me,
true.
even if I lose that moment,
Mm,
it is so brief that I can say max a couple of minutes, right? It's
mm-hmm,
not that I never
mm.
lose my state,
Right, right, right.
right? And that is fine, because that's fine because you're able to go back and then understand why did you react in that way in the first place, right? Okay, I
Right.
was reading,
Okay.
I was getting disturbed, and then I get distracted, and that, see, our nature of our human beings is filled with emotions, right? It is not one
Right.
single emotion.
Mm,
Especially when you look at the hunter gatherer and those days, we are
mm, mm,
highly sensitive beings. Like when we are going
mm,
for a hunt on the forest
mm,
and etc.,
mm.
the fear is a one of the constant thing that which we always hold within us,
Right.
right? So though
Yeah.
there are programs which talks about like overcome the fear, fear is
Mm,
false evidence,
mm,
sorry,
mm,
false evidence appearing real, right? Yeah, that is
mm,
a
mm,
motivational thing, right?
mm,
So though we talk about it, there are some
mm,
fears, the alertness within us which is always awake.
mm.
So that when it gets frightened, it wants to react in some way, or it will
Right.
challenge it.
I think that's instinctive to preserve ourselves.
Yes. So
Mm,
that kind of an instinctive reactions are fair enough, which is
mm,
understandable.
mm,
The other side, what I see is if it is for a prolonged time, see some of the things, what happens is like I might in my work and work situation, I may receive an email and someone
mm,
have been little harsh on me or some situation,
mm,
and they may
mm,
not even understand it completely. So what
mm,
happens is I also react in a way. I write a mail. I mean, I'm not talking about speaking,
mm.
but then I write a mail, and then I feel that okay, after sending to them, I realize that oh, maybe I can be a little more gentle. I'm not saying I will be
Yes,
harsh on shouting or anything like that, but then
I know.
I'll be going
But a
back
better
and then
approach.
poking them in a wrong place,
Yeah.
kind of,
Right, right, right.
right,
I get you. Mm.
right. You just try to tell them, okay, see, you pointed this to me, and then I will be pointing out that what I did and why I'm
True,
kind of that
true,
behavior.
true, true.
So in that place, what happens is If I leave it, if I'm able to make peace with myself at that moment by after sending it, that is absolutely fine. But if
Right.
that thought, like, why that person sent a mail, such a mail to me, and
Mm.
if that thought I'm holding on for little more time, like, say an
Mm.
hour or so, that
Mm.
means that I have to go and speak to that person at that moment. I don't want to hold a
Right.
thought in my head.
Right. And that also means lowering your ego because when you read something harsh about yourself, it
Yes.
hits you first. And then you realize, okay, can I just go beyond and see the person's genuine frustration? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
maybe I was late in sending something. Or maybe, I mean, I don't know, our defenses come up when we hear something harsh, right?
Yeah. Because they may not also not understand it completely. So this is a
True.
very natural thing that happens. Someone from a
Mm.
different perspective, they write an email, and then for some reason, our ego, our thing that gets hurt, and it wants
Mm.
to, like, be a rebel and then
Retaliate.
point that out.
Right, right,
So
right.
this is a very
And
natural thing.
as we keep working on ourselves, I think our reactions change over a period of time.
Even if it, like, the reaction of more than the reaction itself, I would say it the reduction of your reacting time, right? So for,
Mm.
like, the state of going back into your peace, how long are you
Oh,
taking? Are you taking, like, a minute or a day or a year? That is what matters,
right.
right? And I know that. Okay, so since, like, we are all talking here, so I'm saying that, at one point in time I was depressed, right?
Mm-hmm. We've
And
all been there.
yeah, when I'm saying that,
Mm.
literally, like, the depression is a place that you run through a lot of negative, like, you're holding on to the thought of why this happened to me, kind of a place,
Mm. Mm.
right? So I don't want this situation at all, and this happened to me. It is so unfair,
Mm. True.
and this can last. Especially people, I know the one who's going through depression, they can be there for so many, what do you say, months or years, maybe,
Oh, okay. Right.
right? So that
I
is
see.
quite possible.
Okay.
So
Thank
that's a natural thing.
you. Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Hi, Karthik.
Yes, Kushal.
Karthik, you just mentioned about the email scene, right?
Yes.
So you're saying that take some time, do not like respond immediately. So you're saying that just think about that why this happened and then reply to the email, is it?
No, I didn't say that. I said I sometimes I reply it with all
Mm.
my conscious self. I reply it, but
Okay.
then, like, if the thought that whatever I said, or if the thought that why the person wrote such an email to me, if it
Mm-hmm.
stays with me for some time, then
Mm-hmm.
it's time for me to act. That is to reconcile or go and speak to the other person and sort out the situation. That's what I meant.
Okay, okay. So, but you
Because
would never be harsh or you never send that reply because there would be others also in CC. You would be
yes, I
feeling
mean,
that yeah.
it was not a harsh email. That's what I'm just pointing out. As I mean, at least the example that I took is it's really happened, like, a week or so back. Okay.
Huh, huh,
So
huh.
to give you a little more clarity on it, someone just responded saying that a CEO of the company, I mean, where I'm consulting, and he responded saying that what do you say? So I want you guys to look into it, but then you guys are not looking into it, and it's taking so much time. But
Huh.
then, as a consultant, I know that I have already completed my task from my play, my
Mm,
side of it, right? So
mm.
already we responded. Whereas when he was looped in, that is he didn't realize that that is there is a mail thread below that.
Okay, okay, got it.
So he
Okay.
just saw that response and then some escalation, and then he just reacted, "What you guys are doing? You're not doing anything." Mhm. So
It's a very common thing, right, Karthik? Because this keep happening.
yes, it is a common thing. What I'm saying is,
Yeah,
for that,
yeah.
what I have to do is I have to respond in a way that which is a little more pokey. Like, when I say pokey,
Huh.
I was just started mentioning the time and see, at so and so time this case was logged and this is what we did and these are the
Mm,
things, and then you joined late and we are doing
mm.
this. It's not that you have to
Huh.
point us out. It's kind of it
Okay.
comes from that kind of an ego little thing
But
that
that's
one has.
okay, right? That's okay, Karthik.
Yeah, that is okay. I am not
Mm,
pointing out that also. So
mm,
now, after even me responding, the thought that why he responded or the way I responded, is it right?
Huh.
That thought stayed with me.
Okay.
So
Okay.
is it worth to hold the thought in my head?
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it.
It is not. So what I did was, though the response and everything, the mails are gone, I called him, I spoke to him, and then
Uh-huh.
just find out, because like it is also my assumption that he will mistake it, right?
Correct. 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 Correct.
So that we spoke,
So
and
this is also happens in the relationship, like when you fight with your wife, like with her husband. So you fight, and then you later realize that sure, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have, told. And
Mhm.
then again you would go back and then make some peace. So
Right.
yeah, it's something really
So that time is what I'm talking about. Like, instead of
correct.
holding the thought on you in your mind for a long,
Mm,
try to
mm,
reconcile as early as possible, because no thought worth to occupy your
correct.
mind, right?
You're
No
right.
thought,
You're right.
right?
Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
don't,
Correct.
if anything that bothers you, the first thing is sort that out. It can, like, no
Yeah.
ego, no attachments, no identities, nothing. Just let go of
Correct.
everything, sort it out.
Correct.
Even if it
Usually
means,
that first thing comes is okay, let her come. It's her mistake. Let her come. I won't be talking to her.
correct,
So and then she'll also be thinking that let him come back because it's not my mistake.
true,
So I think it's yeah, got it.
true. So that's what happens. So that's what I'm just mean by any thoughts. And these are also like, the root causes, the identities we created. So that's what I was just trying to
Correct.
point it
Correct.
out.
Correct. Correct. Got it. So this is the first pillar, is it? The
Sorry?
identity. This is like the first pillar.
This is the part.
The
No,
pillar, the
this is like
first
the
pillar.
first pillar, is it? Like how?
No, I'm not getting it. Can I just, Shibani, you are saying something, or?
He's saying that the identity is the first pillar.
Yeah,
P-I-L,
it is.
yeah.
It is. It is. So, see, there is no absolute way to say that this is the first pillar, this is the last thing, or something like that, Kushal. But then the identities are the one which is the which first it creates, like, it creates. Okay, so I'll just give you one other example. Is there is a layers of change. There is a pyramid called in NLP they use actually. In NLP, there's a Robert Dill's method of change, right? So there's the lowest one is change your habits, change your environment, change your behavior, then change your say, then comes uh, belief system, then comes identity, then comes purpose. So it's a hierarchy, okay? But I'm not going there and then referring to those things. However, the largest things that changes, like, the purpose and the identities are the topmost two parts. If that changes, everything below that changes. Do you
Got
get
it.
it, Kushan?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If you change your purpose, like, for an example, um, like if I am as a person, though, like, for an example, okay, I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to take all these things, and then I love to do this. So when I'm constantly thinking about this is my identity, naturally, without any effort, like, also, like, there is some part of me starts changing within this, I mean, within me, right? So that is identities changes, and that changes your behavior, your actions, your habits and everything. So
Got it.
that way you can call that as some element of the as a first pillar, or yeah, you can call
Yeah.
that,
Got it. Got it.
right? So yeah, I just so anyway, so we're already reached 7:30. So do you want to do any practice session today, or do you want to run through? Is that I see it can be like, paper and pen activity, or it can be a mental activity. So which one do you prefer? If I may ask few of you, like, Reshma and Tanaji. So
Yes.
if you have to practice this, see, if you have to understand what are our identities are, right? So how would you prefer to do that? Do you want to do it mentally, as in, like, we can walk through it from the earliest memory until this point, what are the flashes we get, and then you want to make note of it later on? Or do you want to consciously do it? When I say consciously, take a paper and pen and then write about who you are, like, I am so and so, and I belong to, I am whatever. the whole thing? How would you prefer to do it?
Mental activity should be better.
Mental activity should be better. Okay. So shall we just quickly? I mean, it's not too long, but can we just get started with that? If you're okay.
Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So to give you one quick thought is there are two types of identities we are talking about here. One is conscious identities, one is unconscious identities. So when I say unconscious identities, the identities which came to us, like, by birth, like, from the time that we were born in this world, it can be from our family, the culture, the religion, or it can be like, the social environment, social status, and etc. That starts creating an unconscious conditioning to who we are. And wherever we can hold on to, it can be anything. It can be from your family, society, language, even, so everything, like, the place of birth, everything that we attach to in that form. The other side is, and conscious conditioning is primarily the what are the things that we read later on in our life, or the education that we pursued, or the job that we have taken as an entrepreneur, or like, whatever the job title is, like whatever we acquired, or from the books that we read, or it can be like, the people who we follow, some level of like, identities we form. And the very important thing for this exercise to keep is we are trying to understand the identities. So don't classify anything as good or bad, right? So, or like, right or wrong, positive, negative, no classification, right? No classification of identities. It is just you observe. And the identities is not just what you attach to, but it also can be what you don't like. I mean, it is not just what I like. I am like to be a CEO is one attachment. Also, what I don't like is also another way that we push it out. Are you getting that? I mean, that is a very subtle thing, right? So it's very important to know that what is our likes and dislikes as well, right? When it comes to it. So with that said, let's begin. So make yourself comfortable wherever you are. Just gently breathe in, breathe out. Breathe out through your mouth and breathe in through your nose. Take a few deep breaths. Now, gently close your eyes. Scan your body from head to toe and find if there is any physical discomfort. If there is any physical discomfort, just allow that part to relax. As you relax, scan your body for any sensations and just acknowledge those sensations and allow them to be there. It's fine. Gently check in with the state of mind or your emotion and feeling at this moment. Whatever the emotion, the feelings, it is absolutely fine. Let them be. They are there for a reason. Just allow them to be there. Now, just observe your thoughts. As we know, the thoughts are just like a ripples. The ripple come, ripple go. You don't have to have any active control over it or a forceful way. They will settle down naturally. So allow them to be there and let them settle by natural way. Since we are scanning consciously, we are trying to find out the identities we associate our life with. So let's go back to the earliest memory that you can remember from your life. Just go back from the time of your birth, right? So gently go from there to a day or the first flash of memory as a kid, as a child that you have at this moment. Look for the flash of memory. Within that memory, look for how you are, like, who you are at this moment and what is the kind of a state that you are in. See what you see, feel what you feel, hear what you hear, and be there in that memory of yours. As you're being there in your memory, the earliest memory that you have, look for, is there any kind of a identity from that earliest memory that you're holding on until this point? Look for it. Is it someone else telling you something? Or are you feeling something within you? Look for it. And gently make a mental note of that specific identity or that specific, a mental snapshot of that memory. And it's time to go back and travel to the next memory that comes to you. So as you grow up from the childhood, the earliest memory, just look for how your life, turn on from then on. And look for the memory that flashes to you at this moment that is next to that, the first memory. Where are you? What were you doing? And fully immerse yourself into the memory by hearing what you heard, seeing what you saw, and feeling what you felt. As you live in the memory, just look for, is there any identity that you've been told or are you feeling at that moment, which you're holding on until this moment? If there is any identity that you can see of, just make a mental note of it, take a snapshot of that memory, and then time to move forward. Now, the few years gone by, and now probably you are in a school. During your school days, is there any memory that stands out so distinctively to you? Look for it. It can also be during your college days. Whatever the strongest one, take it. See what you saw, hear what you hear, feel what you felt. Look for any pattern of identity that was created at that moment. If there is any identity, take a mental snapshot, and then it's time to move few more years forward. Now, probably you're in your college days or in the earlier to the work. Now that you're a grown-up adult, you're a mature person in that point in time. So with that, then you make a lot of conscious choices at this point. So the conscious choice can be like it is influenced by the people. It can be your friends, it can be your family members, it can be the loved ones, it can be the books that you read, or it can be anything. Look for any specific flash of memory that stands out. If there is a specific memory that you can see, just be there in that memory. See what you saw, feel what you felt, and be there to scan for any identity which formed at that memory, at that point in time. If there is an identity that you figured it out or which you're still holding on to it, take a mental note of it, take a snapshot of that memory, and then still it's time to come back. So when I say it's time to come back, just gently run by year, like every year. Just find out, is there any memory that wants to stand out and then want to tell you that these were the identities that you're holding on right now, which got created at those moments. Look for those kind of a event or a flash of memory. If there is any, go back for one more time. And this time, let's find out what does it want to say. So in that memory, again look for, is there any identity which created during that stage or in that memory? If there is any identity that's created which you're holding on to it now, take a mental snapshot, make a mental note, and then it's time to leave that place and come back. So you can walk through this line like just how you can walk back to the present moment. Just gently have a look around. It is like you're walking on the memory lane. So both the sides are filled with your memories, from the earliest memory to the present memory, which you can experience at this moment. So until this moment, you're just walking, you're looking, you're glancing through it, and then you're just walking to here. See if there is anything that stands out, and if you think it is time to inquire or you wanted to go back and see, just look forward to it, make a note of it, and then come back to this place now. So at this moment, you're back to this place, you're back to this conversation, and back to this practice. So now, with all the snapshots of the memories and identifying what are the identities, or some of the identities you may figure out, keep that, take a mental note, and then let's come back to this room or wherever you are. Just come back to the environment you are in. Notice the sounds and notice your feeling, emotion at this moment. As you're coming back to the place where you are, just gently open your eyes whenever you're comfortable. So if everybody, every one of you are back and good, so please let me know. All right, everyone. I hope everyone is back to this place,
Yep. Yep.
right? It's okay. Yep. So that being said, so see, this exercise can be very detailed as well. Like, this can go on for hours. In fact, like, I have done one of the time, the very similar kind of an exercise, which went on for almost an hour and a half. Like, it's literally they roll from one, like, from 1 year of your life to the next one. Like, from your 5-year old to 6-year old to 7-year old until this moment. Like, they can just keep on rolling, right? So, but we don't have that luxury of time at this moment. But then, like, if you can just get a glimpse of understanding of what are the identities are and then how it is formed within you, then we are at a good place. And also, that one thing that I have to point you out is there are two places generally our mind wanders to. One is to the past, one is to the future as well. We just did one part of the exercise, which is primarily on to the past, but there is also a wanting place. The wanting place is where we want to go. We constantly think, oh, I want to become someone. There is an aspiration. Though there is no harm to have an aspiration or anything, but then the only thing with aspiration is the place that we want to is, it also is a constant reminder for what we are trying to escape and where we want to go. So if you understand that, that is the future can also hold into your mind, and then it can make you, take you away from inner stillness. Because how do I know is, for a very long period, I used to think that I live in the future, right? I always say to people, I don't live in the past. The past doesn't bother me much. But then for me personally, what it used to bother me is, I always create a better future than the present moment. And that is where I always want to be. So that is also a way that I wanted to escape the present moment. And I want to be in the future. So look for that. Probably that is for the other day that we can go into the future as well. So for today, let's stick with this thing. What are the exercise that we did? And I like to know from you that, have you figured out any identities, or is that anything that stood out for you? If you can just share, that helps me to understand how this exercise works, or how effective it is. Just let me know. Please share your thoughts.
Yes, Karthikeyan,
Yes, Tanaji.
there were a lot of memories
Yes.
for me from early childhood
Mhm.
and up to now. In my early childhood, I was fearing that I can't lose anyone that is near to me. And from that early childhood, I become young. When I go to college, there I found some ego in myself.
Mhm.
A lot of ego in working places also. I'm something, I can do this and I can do that. I'm strong, like that. All the feelings that can be included in ego, I have it. And now I'm remembering that it was not so right that I had it like this.
You feel light now?
No, 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 no. The feelings now are very different from the past.
Okay.
In the
Okay.
past,
Got it, Tanaji.
mm,
So I can relate to this. That is the fear of losing is something I had for a very, very long time, because I lost my father very early in my life, when I was a kid. And I've seen few deaths in a very early stage, when I was 6 or 7 year old. And that point in time, I always feared that I would lose people. That is one of my constant fear used to be. So I can relate with you. So I'm just sharing it. And that is, I know how deep it is, and how it can hold us. Right. So I understand that. Thank you for sharing, Tanaji. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Kushal, Shibani, Reshma, Bharati, anyone, please?
May I?
Yes, please, Shibani.
Yeah, okay. So I remember till the longest time during my growing up years, I was very, very short-tempered. I was this really angry child, and um, till I reached a stage where people around me would be borderline scared. Oh, she's really going to react. And when you're a teenager, you're just holding on to your sense of identity so tight. You're clinging on to every bit of it. So somewhere deep down, I started enjoying that. Okay, this is my wall, keep away, do not hurt me. So that entire thing with the anger and everything. And yeah, and it just felt so good to be in that place, that nothing can touch you basically. And it just felt very cool, honestly, at that point of time. That okay, but gradually over the years, I've realized I've really, really mellowed down. I do lose it sometimes now, but then I feel it's completely justified
Mhm.
for that particular moment or that particular circumstance. But yes, I do feel a lot has dissolved in over all these years,
Mhm.
and it's beautiful. It's very peaceful. It's very yeah, it's a very peaceful state at that time. But yes, I do feel the transition over the years, definitely, and I don't feel that loss of identity you know. And like what I was discussing earlier, I remember speaking to a friend about 6 years back that
Mhm.
people say that I know this person and this is how she'll react or this is how he'll react. And I just don't have any identity. Nobody can say anything about me. They just don't know how will I react.
True.
And he told me then that Shivani, we are all evolving, and it did not make sense to me at that point of time. I just thought
Mhm.
he's just saying anything just to comfort me, you know.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
today I realize it that it is so beautiful not to, in fact, have a, a particular sense of identity at all, and you just fluid.
True.
Because yesterday I may react violently. After 2 months down the line, I might just see the sense in it, or perhaps think that will reacting in a particular way health matters,
Mhm.
and and I think you just realize that you're not doing it for the outside person.
True.
Every reaction of yours, you're just doing it for the way it'll make you feel about about the entire thing. So I'm kind of enjoying this loss of identity, to be very honest. It used to
Perfect.
bother me to no end. It used to make me think that I'm just nothing. There's nothing to me. But this feels like water, honestly.
Awesome. That is a next thing I was supposed to say was water. Like, the tau. I mean, the tau water is. They say, right, the famous the Bruce Lee's dialogue. If you know, be like a water, my friend.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Right. So he says
Yeah,
that you pour the water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You pour the
right,
water into a jug, it becomes a jug. Right. So
right.
wherever it is, it takes the shape of the water. Sorry, shape of the place.
Hmm,
It
hmm.
doesn't hold its
True,
own identity. It is
true.
so soft, so supple, so weak that it doesn't
Yes.
fight with anything. The water, like, if there is any obstacle it faces in front of it, it
Huh.
doesn't constantly fight. Rather, it takes another course of way and then it goes on.
Exactly. And it doesn't make you feel weak anymore.
Right? So nothing can hold on to the water. And even there's a
True.
same thing, right? Your water, a drop of droplets, right? It can actually put a hole in a whole rock. A solid rock
Yes, yes.
over a years and years of, like, the one
Right.
drop at a
Falling in
time
the same place. Yes.
falling in the same place can form a hole, literally. So
True.
nothing can stand against the water, and that is where the patience, as well as the way that we can be little more flexible, be subtle, like be flexible like a water comes to us.
Yes.
So that's a
Yes.
very, very well said, Shivani.
Thank you.
Kushal, do you want to share something, Kushal?
Nothing much, Karthik.
Nothing much. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. So we can discuss this. And as I said, like, this is an important thing that, so when you're talking about identity, see if you have, like, see, some of you may not like have uh, the identity that you're holding on at this moment. But the one quick thing is, if there is anything in a day that makes you uncomfortable, just reflect on that very specific thought. Whenever you feel the discomfort, even it can be like, when you're going through a social media post, right? Some posts that can stand out and then say, hey, like, it can disturb you, right? In a way that you feel little uncomfortable seeing some post. It's not because the post itself is bad, but then maybe there is some other emotion that it triggers within you, right? So look for yes point like that, any specific word, any specific behavior of others, or any specific time or situation that you feel irritated or uncomfortable or uneasy with your own self. Then that is exactly the moment to look into yourself to find out what is the identity that we are holding on to. So that is a practice that we should carry mindfully over a period of time. It is not a few minutes or an hour exercise. It is an activity that we should be consciously doing every single moment. So practice it, be there, and whatever that may come, it is fine. Just acknowledge and accept. That's all it is. The moment we accept things, anything that, like, we, I mean, there's a saying, right? what we resist persist. Whatever we are trying to resist so hard, it is going to
True.
persist in our life. So that way, instead of resisting, just accept whatever comes through our way. By accepting, it loses its power, and that way it gives us a freedom as well. So with that thought, let's conclude this day. And thank you so much for joining. And yes, I understand. Happy Diwali to all of you. And thank you so much for taking out this time for this, the 55 minutes. So thank you so much. And I'll connect with you all. Probably you can post and you can ping me personally. We can have a conversation. All right.
Thank
So
you
with
so
that
much.
thought,
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful day.
Happy
Okay,
Diwali,
same to you.
everyone.
Happy Diwali.
Same to
Thank you so
you
much.
and happy Diwali.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.